Are you ready for some football? Yeah? Excellent. I'll try to go through this a little quickly. I was telling Drew I love Q&A, so I'll move through the slides at a quick pace, so hopefully I can get some questions at the end. And we're a fan of all 32 teams at the league, so I can't help you out there. Right. So the foundation of our business model is really having full and electric stadiums at all games. All of our revenue streams and our fan passion ripples out from the energy and glow emanating from the stadiums. The pure emotion that many of us feel and felt as 10-year-old boys and girls walking out from the concourse into the stadium, to an NFL stadium for the first time, cannot be replicated anywhere else. We know that when we create the right experience, the TV experience is not better than being there. We define the essence of the NFL by 3 different words: intense, meaningful, and unifying. For a fan, the living room can never be as intense as a great day at the game with many friends, family, and complete strangers. The living room can never be as meaningful as standing up and cheering with other fans as you lose your voice rooting for your team. The living room can never be as unifying as creating a greater sense of belonging than 70,000 other fans cheering as one. It is the essence of the NFL. But over the past 3 decades, and especially the past 10 years in terms of technology, the at-home TV experience has surpassed the in-game experience. From a technology side, with the proliferation of HD TVs and new services like NFL Red Zone, it is tough for us to catch up. But it is imperative from the league to make sure that that at-stadium experience is paramount to our fans. So we have been conducting all sorts of research. Back in 2007, we started a very comprehensive market research study that went across all 32 clubs. It surveyed our season ticket holders, our club seat holders, and single game buyers. The topics that it covered was everything about the game day experience and understanding satisfaction across the different measures. It was looking at ticketing and their reasons for renewing and the likelihood to renew. And then we've done this study every year since so that we were able to benchmark the results and see where those gaps are and where we need to improve and the areas that we have been doing well in. The study is really broken down into 2 main components. First is the stadium operations side, which is looking at things such as concessions and/or parking or security. But then also from the entertainment experience side, game entertainment and technology. The results that we generate from this study fall into 2 buckets. One, simply for each club and customized reports, and then second of all, from a league level. From a club standpoint, we produce, as I mentioned, customized reports. Here is a very basic example of some of the output that we would show. In this case, this is across our game entertainment battery of questions. So the first thing you'll see is and we look at both importance and satisfaction across all our different measures. So the first thing you'll notice is that replays are the most important things to our fans in terms of game entertainment. It is also the area where the biggest gap exists in terms of people being satisfied. So we'll follow up with further research to better understand the replay situation, understand how often fans are wanting replays. And you can see the data here is generally, whether it's after every play or it's big game or big plays by your team or another team, fans want to see replays. So as a league, we encourage our teams to show as many as possible. You can never show enough replays. From a technology content standpoint, besides replays, the content that people are interested in seeing in-game falls into 3 different buckets. First, it's really about information about that game that they're watching. It's more statistics, it's injury updates. And then secondly, it's about information about the other games going on. So obviously the updates on the scores, but it's also seeing highlights from around the league. And then lastly, it's getting more of that general stadium information, whether it's about what concession lines might be shortest, weather information, parking. We continue to customize the reports for teams. And don't necessarily focus on the numbers here, but this would be an example of an output where we'll look at across all the different elements within the study. We'll rank them by the gap that exists. So in this case, this team had gaps most of all in their concessions area and parking and transportation. But because those are issues that generally are across all of our teams, parking is extremely difficult, and whether it's with NFL or any of the other sports. We also look at the data in a different way, which is on the right-hand side, is we actually compare the gap that that team has to the NFL average. So in this case, this team had issues more on the along the lines of, in terms of that crowd experience and generating a lively crowd, having different fan rituals. So again, it gives the teams two different ways at looking at the data, just their overall kind of pain points that exist, but where they're doing better or worse vis-a-vis the other 31 clubs. We also do some stadium audit research, which is very simply, it's kind of like mystery shopping, where we have auditors go around all the different stadiums, take a variety of pictures to kind of document their experience. And again, we share this across the teams. We really like to offer some best practices to our clubs so they can see the other clubs that are doing well and the areas that they could do better in. So in the next few slides, just some brief examples. This is kind of like parking. Areas of best practices, whether it's putting vests on the parking folks so that people know where they're going. It's having more clear signage out there so people know what lot they're going in. In some cases, like the Falcons, they have developed an interactive parking tool that people can see very up-to-date, real-time information of the best places to park. From a concession standpoint, again, we'll give them best practices on what other teams are doing, whether it's just having a variety of different type of options. Nowadays it's a lot of gluten-free out there, but then it's also pushing the local fare. These fans, obviously, most teams have a kind of a local element in terms of the type of food that they have, and it's kind of bringing that in stadium so that people can enjoy it. And then with pregame entertainment is, we want people to come to the stadiums early and enjoy and have a good time. And, what are the things that other teams can be doing to kind of keep the fans engaged, and whether that's just having simple, interactive gaming zones, outside the concourse, or, inside having like a Hall of Fame exhibit. Again, it's all about keeping fans engaged. So those are the things we do from a club perspective. But from a league perspective, we take the information as well, and we decide what our bigger initiatives are at the NFL offices. So I'm going to take you through a few slides where this past year our 5 biggest initiatives were. So first, it's really from an information and content and technology gap situation. So simply replicating the at-home experience is really not our end game. We really need to deliver, the stats, the replays, the red zone highlights that are easily accessible from the stadium. And we need to offer people in stadium unique content as well. So this year, based off of these findings, one of the things that we implemented was for those in stadium only, they would be able to see the live under-the-hood video that a umpire would be seeing as well, in case there was like a replay. So they would actually see the same video that the referee was looking at, whereas at home you're not seeing that. The second area that we're really focusing on is all about Wi-Fi. I'm sure many of you have been to a game and you're trying to use your phones and you're not getting anywhere, either calling or texting or even checking anything, stats and scores around the league. So it's very, very expensive to do a lot of these Wi-Fi infrastructures, but we are working very closely with teams. This year, in fact, we're doing a test among 6 of the teams. There's a few more stadiums that are implementing it to really see how well it's working. So both there's kind of just the overall cellular service, but then there's creating separate Wi-Fi networks at stadium, because this is, nobody wants to go, 4 hours with not being able to use their phone. Secondly, it's reducing those pain points, the hassles that really accompany, the game day experience. We need to really work on traffic, eliminating the concession lines, having that great signage for people to find their way, and having, good fan behavior in the stadium as well. So because, as much as a young family may love, going to see their team and seeing them in person, a 6-hour door-to-door, with lots of traffic, that's not the experience that is going to really get them to go out and move out of their living room to get them out to a game. Third, we need to create stronger emotional triggers, those unique in-stadium moments every week, better access to teams and players, and more powerful rituals that the entire community will want to be a part of. So in Seattle, they've actually created what they call the 12th man ritual, which it's such a simple but yet powerful ritual where all the fans stand up, shout, and point, first down, and all in a simple unison, simplifying moment. Last year, and we've continued into this year, was at the very first preseason game, home preseason game for each team, we would honor a certain number of fans. So the fans would go out of the same tunnel that the players would go out into the stadium with, and the players would give them a jersey and then thank them for being a fan, loyal fan, and coming to the stadium. So again, we started that last year, and we continued that type of fan ritual this year as well. From a money standpoint, it's very simply, we need to reinvest into those meaningful improvements into the stadium because, again, it is our foundation, and making sure that the stadium and the infrastructure behind it, whether it's the physical components of it or some of the operational things we talked about, is really of the utmost importance. And then lastly, it really comes down to almost marketing that positive experience of being in stadium. We want people to know, both nationally and locally, that it's great to be at a game, and there's nothing else like it, and we want people to continue to come back. So we can continue to close that content gap, reduce the pain points, deliver greater value. It's important for us to remind fans of those emotional benefits of being part of the stadium community on game day. Ultimately, we must remind fans, for them, that feeling that they had as a 10-year-old boy or girl when they emerged from the concourse and the immensity of a buzzing stadium appeared before them. So I successfully completed that in my time allotted. So I am more than happy to take questions, whether it's about some of the stuff that we touched on here or if you have any other NFL questions. I will say, don't ask me about the bounties, please. Off limits. Yes, sir.
What's it going to take to get NFL Pass in the U.S.?
Game Pass?
Yeah, Game Pass.
So the question was about NFL Game Pass. NFL Game Pass is an online product where you can see our games online. Currently, the product is only available internationally, not here in the U.S. I think the biggest challenge with Game Pass of bringing it here in the U.S. is it starts to infringe on the rights fees that CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN pays us. We think the best experience is definitely via television. Well, actually, we think the best experience is in-game. But second of all, the next best experience is in television. The challenge of why we put it out there internationally is simply because of the rights deals. And a lot of times, internationally, we're not always getting the best time slot. The games aren't necessarily shown live, depending where it is around the world. So we want to make sure people have the ability to see it online. I don't see that happening anytime soon in the U.S. There's a few games. I mean, the Sunday night package with NBC is online, not through Game Pass, but separately it is. But I think from our standpoint, TV, outside of being in-game, TV is the most important. It's one of our biggest revenue streams, and we need to make sure we're kind of beholden to that. But it's an interesting question you bring up. Yes, sir?
How much influence, like when Minnesota is looking to build a new stadium, how much influence do you have in helping design that experience?
We don't necessarily... it's kind of varying extents. I'll take that in two parts. I mean, sometimes there's the simple negotiations with the local government and kind of dealing. We don't necessarily get involved in the logistics of just kind of the hassles of who's paying for it, that type of stuff. We get involved to make sure that whatever the end product is, whether if it has to be building a new stadium or refurbishing, we'll definitely get involved from that standpoint. And give our opinion on things. So we step in when we need to, but generally we we're obviously aware of everything going on. We generally let the teams hammer it out with the government, their local governments on their own. Obviously, if there's ever a point of a team moving or something like that, that's obviously we get heavily involved in that as well. Come on, you guys are NFL fans. Let's go. Here's your chance. Come on, Drew.
So my question is around fantasy football. Obviously, fantasy football is a huge driver for the NFL over the last 10 years. But for the in-stadium experience, is the NFL of the opinion that pushing too much fantasy information in the stadium is a distraction, or are they supporting it for the in-stadium experience?
It's a great question. How many of those play fantasy football? Yeah, about a decent amount. It's interesting because for the person who plays fantasy and who goes to games, you can't give them enough information. But you have to balance that against the fantasy population is relatively small versus the broader audience. So what we've kind of encouraged teams is to do is the best of both worlds, is to certainly put out as much information as you can. As I mentioned, whether it's first about your game, make sure you've covered off on stats in your games, but definitely show a lot of stats, best running back performances around the league as well. And I think our general feeling is for the whatever it is, 90% of other people who don't play fantasy is they don't have to pay attention to it because you're not taking away from something that they're not getting otherwise. So a lot of anytime a new stadium is being built or refurbished, we're doing a lot more what we call, the ribbon boards around where you can show a lot more stats, or even in the video boards showing more information. So to date, we're not taking anything away from the person who's not interested. We've never really heard from somebody that says, oh my God, you're putting too much stats. TV is a little bit different, I will say, because sometimes there's a lot of information going through the ticker on the bottom. In stadium, nobody's ever said too much, hold off. So for those, 10% or so that are interested in it, we're trying to serve them as best as possible because it is a growing area for us. And we do know that fantasy really helps people stay connected to the NFL and makes them more of an ad fan.
Is it really only 10% of the?
It's about 20% of our fans. Okay. The overall population is actually less than 10%.
Wow.
It's like 8%, something, give or take. Got 3 minutes. Yes, sir. I think we care about it. I don't know if we've ever calculated what individual players are worth to an individual team. I guess teams I'd have to say that teams do that in terms of the salary that they generally pay people in terms of what they know they're going to get back from them. I don't know if from a league level. We don't tend to get involved so much. We get involved in player contracts and making sure they're legitimate and all that, but not necessarily in how much somebody pays them. But it's an interesting thought. Yes, sir. I guess it depends how you're calculating profitability, but generally, our most profitable team is the Dallas Cowboys by far. Not by far, but there's a lot of ones up there. Their stadium is, whether because their PSLs are some of the highest priced and they've sold out of them. It's a large stadium as well, but they're definitely our most profitable team across the board. Yes, sir. It's certainly not. I'd love to talk to you further because I think our goal is to give you as much information. You're just talking as a general consumer, like online and keeping information. Are you? We actually have a lot of people internally working on that. Maybe we're not doing as good a job as we think we are, perhaps. We're certainly not holding back on historical data by any means. Certainly not on purpose. We've developed some systems that other sports properties are replicating. We could probably always do better, but it's something I'm not actually aware of us not doing a good job in that area. But I'd be curious to learn more. No, I wasn't suggesting that at all. No, because what I would say, as someone who represents the fan, your perception is reality to me. So if you're telling me, I've got a note right after this, I'm going to go back and talk to those IT people to see why they're not getting historical data out there. That's interesting to me. 20 seconds. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.